Well, folks, are you ready for a little Jan in the pan? Oh, yeah, we're talking the brain that wouldn't die. You know, I have right now a legendary motion picture, not by legendary pictures, but just a mofo of a classic sitting in the wings, ready to go. But something about this was just calling to me. Yeah, so we are looking at that 1962 B movie extraordinaire, uh, unbelievable schlock fest, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and just kind of going over the bare bones here. The main people involved in this are Joseph Green and Rex Carlton as far as production, writing, directing, etc. Um, this movie stars Jason Evers as Dr. Bill Courtner and Virginia Leith as Jan Compton. And just get rid of the scant notes here. If I can find a way. I'll make it back to civilization if I can find a way. I just rewatched this today for the first time in a very long time. Probably for the first, probably quite a few years, really. And woo-wee, fun. I have had a weird relationship with The Brain That Wouldn't Die. But just to give you the plot, so Bill is this brilliant surgeon who keeps a patient's brain tissue alive in time to resuscitate his heart and get him off the operating table. And his own father, who's a renowned doctor himself, is astonished but kind of horrified because he knows Bill has been working on stuff like this way off in the background or something. And Bill is also involved with Jan, who is a former who is she's a nurse or a doctor or an intern or something. Not 100% sure, but they are engaged and they seem very happy. And he's talking about how he's going to take Jana to the country home, and which the family apparently owns, and his father, who's going off to a convention elsewhere, just like, I really hate that old place. It doesn't feel right to me. I really wanted to unload it after your mom passed. And Bill's just like, oh, nonsense. It's going to be great. And he's evidently doing kind of a little research up there. And so he and Jan take off in this swanky convertible, and they start heading out up the country roads and off to the place. And he's obviously very excited and has stuff he wants to show her, and so on and so forth. And he's so excited he goes off the damn road and crashes, and he is thrown clear of the vehicle and manages to survive. Jan is decapitated in the crash. He runs over to it, is able to scoop up her head, and run through the countryside to the country home. Now, up to this point, I was kind of thinking, all right, well, this is basically all the motions I'm watching all these characters go through has been typical, 1962, kind of typical holdover from kind of B-movie melodrama from the 50s. And it's kind of weird in this kind of post-psycho landscape, but we'll kind of let that slide. It just it starts earning its stripes when you've got Bill with a little fake head wrapped up in a blanket, hustling across the meadows and through the trees, and he eventually makes it to the country home. And what do you know? He's got this whole lab set up there, and he's got this this assistant who's, you know, kind of a gimpy little guy, and he says, "Here, help me do this. We got to do this." And he said, "We've got to worry about that. You know, the thing in the closet." And it's just this. You just see this closet door that's like bolted shut. And it's got multiple locks on it. It's like, what is that? And just when you think that Bill's motivations and maybe his methods were kind of questionable, you kind of get the full scope of things. Bill went off the rails before this movie ever began. He didn't have to lose his fiancée. He didn't have to have his fiancée decapitated in the car. He was already crackers. And he, next thing you know, he's got Jan's head in this little baking pan full of plasma or whatever, and he's got all these tubes attached to her, and he slowly starts reviving her. You know, her head is kind of slowly coming back to life, but it's not quite there, and it just keeps mumbling, "Let me die, let me die." And there lies the sticky wicket, folks. This was maybe not meant to be, right? So eventually, in his mad fanaticism to save her life, which, you know, he eventually does revive her, and she eventually does kind of regain full cognizance, but there's the whole thing, yeah, we're going to have to get her attached to a body probably within the next 48 hours or she's going to go kaput. Well, she's not necessarily keen on that idea, but Bill runs off because he's got bigger fish to fry, and little Kurt, the guy who was apparently one of his earlier failed experiments, he's got the shriveled little arm from when Bill was trying to replace body parts. He apparently gave him this arm, but the dead tissue didn't take to the living tissue, but he's faithfully assisting Bill in this mad medical whatever. And so, he gave me this gimpy little arm, so I owe him everything. And so eventually, we get a good look at what Bill's doing, and she's kind of skulking around these dive bars and flirting with strippers and maybe hoping to lure in an unsuspecting donor. Like, anybody want to donate your body to my girl's head? No? Well, they're fine points and particulars, and you don't necessarily have to know. Just know that I really like you, baby. So he's kind of doing that and showing a more and more shifty side to himself. Ethically compromised doesn't begin to get on the map. But at this point, you find out, they've got one of Bill's failed experiments is the thing locked behind the big door, and as Jan gets more and more cognizant as time goes on, she starts being able to communicate with that thing, and it's pounding on the door, and it's big and brutal, whatever it is. And eventually, the two of them grow quite a bond, and as Bill's out, trying to hook the perfect donor, the perfect corpse donor, as it were, the perfect victim, and as he's doing that, Jan is getting tighter and tighter with that thing behind the door. And poor Kurt, the misguidedly devoted assistant with the shriveled arm, is terrified of that thing behind the door, whatever it is, and he claims that it's evil, it's ungodly, it's just evidently it's some sewn together Frankenstein mutant, and you really don't get to see it until later. But Jan starts communicating more and more with it, and somewhere in here, Bill finds his perfect victim, and it's his old school buddy named Dolores. Doris, I think. Doris, but she's a figure model. A figure model because later on, after she gets in a good conversation, and she's evidently kind of part of, you got like the camera club crowd all in there, and they're all gaga over her. She's like big time, and they're all kind of liking what they see there, and she is very kind of this bitter misandrist, and basically what you find out is she had some kind of an accident when she was with some guy. It was the last guy she ever trusted after that, and she has a horrible, deep, inoperable bit of scarring along the side of her face, which, to be honest with you, speaking strictly for me, it doesn't hurt her at all. Beautiful lady. But, okay, so you've been through some shit in life. You got some scars. We all got scars. Anyway. So, as Bill is hooking her, talking about dreams of miracle plastic surgery, Jan and the thing behind the door kind of collaborate telepathically, or whatever it is they're doing. They've got a bond, and as Kurt's going to feed the thing reaches out and kills him, grabs his one good arm and rips it out, and he stumbles around the lab for a few minutes, bleeding, and this is a lot of bloodshed. It's a black and white movie, so it's a lot of chocolate syrup for 1962. And between that and, I don't know, just the very lurid intimations of this film, you can kind of see, okay, here's the incongruence between the 50s B-movie melodrama and the Gru coming in from the underground. And they don't necessarily mix well, but I'm not going to fault them for trying. I mean, this is one messed up flick. So poor Kurt's bleeding out. Bill comes back with Doris, and slips her a Mickey, and she goes conkers, and so he brings her down to the lab. Jan knows exactly what he's going to do with her, and he's like, this is morally wrong, you cannot do this. And she pretty much gets it going. Yeah, he tapes her mouth shut. Bill tapes her mouth shut. Yeah, you're gonna be attached to this girl I'm about to decapitate. You're gonna have her body, and you're gonna like it whether you want it or not. And man, okay, so pretty soon, somewhere down the road, I'm going to be tackling obsession. And let me tell you something, folks. I don't know, we're talking a movie with that one about a guy who robs a woman of her autonomy through a novelty item. This dude is robbing autonomy every which way but loose. I mean, it's getting wackier and wackier. But she telepathically communicates, okay, now's the time. Now's the time to bust on out of that door, kill Bill. And, sorry guys. So finally, the monster comes busting out the door and tears the door down, and it ain't pretty. And he ends up lighting the lab on fire in the process. But he's like 7 or 8 feet tall, gnarly eyes, one's here, one's up here, and cone head, and he's mad, and he's angry, and he's big, and he's scary, and he's gonna fight his way back to Remulac. So he pretty much succeeds in beating down Bill, biting his throat out, and then he shambles over as the lab's burning up, and he grabs Doris, before she can wake up or anything like that, and starts making his way out the door with her, and there they go, never to be seen again. Meanwhile, Jan's, the last surviving character, left in the room, sitting there in this baking sheet while the whole room goes up in flames. Well, the whole lab goes up in flames. Probably soon the house goes up in flames. And she says, I told you to just let me die. And then the credits go black, and you just see a big "The End" slate, and you just hear kind of a dubbed over laugh, kind of this laugh that she did earlier, but it's kind of taped in. It's like, ha 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 ha, and that's what you're left with. Man, I'll tell you, that ending with that cackle at the end over the end credits, that gave me the willies when I was like 9 years old. I thought that was a very disturbing note to end on as a kid. And, well, yeah, it's still rather unsettling. I'll tell you, I watched this movie a few times as a kid and then just didn't want anything to do with it ever again. I picked it up and saw it again, I think, when I was in my teens, early 20s, somewhere like that. And I thought, well, this is a lot more disturbing than I remember it. Just this poor girl with the scar on her face, and he's gonna like take her to the lab and cut her head off, and sew his wife's head onto it, and it's creepy in any number of ways that really aren't going to connect with you until you get a little older. But of course, this is very famous for being a favorite Mystery Science Theater in the early days. They ran this to death, and in this community, I know there were a lot of folks who were just they either love Mystery Science Theater or they hate it. And I'm not one of the haters, but I understand the hate. And I almost kind of feel bad for people who grew up watching it, who found it that way, because if you're seeing that as a kid, you've got the entire framing device of a guy and 2 puppets sitting there telling you this is a bad movie. And I thought, man, don't approach it basically as a tabula rasa with no concept whatsoever of that kind of framing and being able to piece it together in your head from there. That would be sweet. That would be ideal. That would be optimal. But I can't disregard MST because that was a lot of people's gateway drug. A lot of people got into movies like that because they saw those riffs. So I'm not going to entirely sneeze at that. You know, good deal. But I got a big kick out of watching it, and it always hits me in such a weird way because I think of it as, in a way, just bizarrely uneven, and it's working with conventions that don't entirely work together, but at the same time, the earlier conventions kind of crumble underneath the latter day conventions, and the latter day conventions. And I'm thinking basically, this is a horror movie that came out after Psycho, so it's got some advanced thinking, and you got some murder and mayhem toward the end, and just the very lurid notion of this guy basically cruising strip joints looking for a body to take. And that's ain't that special. That's and that's pretty intense for the early 60s still. It's a very intense subject matter. But the whole time watching it, I kept thinking all kinds of things like, and I know a remake has been done, and maybe they kind of lay heavily into the camp. I think it's a musical or something. I'm not 100% sure. And I've heard some good things about it, but I keep thinking remake land in my head. And yeah, the last, like many of us, I hate all the goddamn remakes. But if we're gonna take that, give that property to someone like Coralie Farge. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. To give that the same kind of treatment she gave, The Substance, and just put that kind of body horror behind it, put that kind of gruesome moralism behind it, and that would be pretty cool. But to better yet, part of me just keeps playing into the camp and wanting to go hard on the camp, because I keep thinking things like, what kind of an alternate ending could I give this? Okay, say, like, maybe after all the trials and tribulations are over, say Bill and Jan decide they're a perfect couple and they can't do without each other, and they're going to stick together, and they decide, they're going to get married, and this guy and this little head in a pan, and meanwhile, the monster and the disfigured model really hit it off, and they become a couple, and you end it a la with a dual wedding, a la Beneath, or I want to say Beneath, Valley of the Dolls, sequel of Valley of the Dolls, way better than Valley of the Dolls. Russ Meyer, it'll come back to me. Something like that. And, maybe Kurt could crawl through a window and ask for a new arm or something like that. I don't know, it might happen. But just the monster and Jan go off and become a power couple. Just anyway. the potential for zaniness abounds. But thank you for coming on this strange journey with me. And I'll see you next time. That'll be nice, won't it?